All right, so here we're going to look. Dang it, I'm breaking stuff. All right, so here we're going to look at the Emancipation Proclamation, this article that I have for you. We're going to look at this together. And I want to talk to you about certain parts of it. We did this in class today, and I thought this was very helpful. Let's try it now, okay? So let's click Emancipation Proclamation. Let's open that. I got a lot of tabs open. Don't judge. Okay, Emancipation Proclamation. My hair's getting longer, if you hadn't noticed. Yeah, that's it. All right. Emancipation. Where am I going to put myself? I'm going to put myself right in the freaking middle. Is that going to screw things up, though? Probably. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So, emancipation, what emancipation means is the state of being. Yep, it's going to mess things up. I'm an idiot. Whatever, right there. All right. So, emancipation is the state of being set free from legal, social, or political restrictions. Okay, let's read this together. I need to change that. Lincoln and slavery, not Lincoln's and slavery. It's like we're talking about Lincoln car, I guess. I don't know. Lincoln and slavery. Scroll down just a little bit. There we go. All right. When the American Civil War began, President Abraham Lincoln carefully framed the conflict as concerning the preservation of the Union. Preservation means to keep the same. Concerning the preservation of the Union rather than the abolition of slavery. Okay? Although he personally found the practice of slavery evil, he knew, I need to get rid of that, but he knew that neither Northerners nor the residents of the border slave states would support abolition as a war aim. The original goal of Lincoln is not to get rid of slavery. That is a misconception. It does kind of turn into that, but that's not the initial goal. The initial goal is to keep the country together, to keep it from splitting, to keep it from going to war with itself. That's the original plan. That's the original goal. It's not to end slavery. But by mid 1862, as thousands of slaves fled to join the invading Northern armies, Lincoln was convinced that abolition had become a sound military strategy as well as the morally correct path. All right, here's what Lincoln had to say about slavery. He said it was an unqualified evil to the Negro, the white man, and the state. He said this in the 1850s. This is the decade prior to the Civil War. Yet in his inaugural address, inauguration is when the president is essentially introduced, he's sworn in, passing of the torch. Lincoln declared that he had this is his quote, had no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with slavery in the states where it exists. So the states that already had slavery, Lincoln was fine with letting them continue to have slavery, but he didn't want it to spread and he didn't want the country to separate. He reiterated this pledge in his first message to Congress on July 4th, 1861, when the Civil War was 3 months old. And it's going to remain that way for about a year and a half. All right, the move toward emancipation, Most Republicans had become convinced by 1862 that the war against the slaveholders' rebellion must become a war against slavery itself. Lincoln was the first Republican president. Andrew Jackson was the first Democratic president. Now you know. Fact of the day. There you go. And the Republicans, they would put increasing pressure on Lincoln to provide or proclaim an emancipation policy. This would have comported with Lincoln's personal convictions, but as president, he felt compelled to balance these convictions against the danger of alienating half of the Union constituency. By the summer of 1862, however, it was clear that he risked alienating the Republican half of his constituency if he did not act against slavery. Here's the thing. There are Republicans and Democrats in the North and the South. Lincoln does not want to alienate some of them for their beliefs. It's like, what's something that you all like? In class today, I use Snapchat. It's like, that's something you all enjoy. That's something that you value. You have to value it. The amount of time y'all spend on it, the way, don't get me started. But it's like, if I just, Snapchat is the worst thing to happen to our generation. It rots your mind. It's sketchy. It allows for you to get away and, deceive others because of these filters that you can put on. So people, they have this they try to make themselves look more attractive than they really are. Really, they're gross deep down. They know it. And they just want to. I could say all these mean things about Snapchat. I'm not saying I believe them all. But I could say all these things about Snapchat, and what's that going to make you feel? Well, this is something that you value. This is something you enjoy. This is something you like. This is something you participate in. So what's it going to do? It's going to alienate you. It's going to separate you from me. It's not physical. I did it with my words. Um, but I was able to kind of alienate you there when I was going off on Snapchat. Man, you wasn't liking me. If I said, all right, now I want you to vote for me, after I just bash something that you participate in, you're going to be a little bit, you're going to think about it a little bit more. That's what Lincoln is worried about. He's worried about trampling on the beliefs of others, but because after you're elected president, your goal is to be reelected president, right? But he knows that if he doesn't act against slavery, he's going to lose more, right? So, moreover, the war was going badly for the Union. After a string of military victories in the early months of 1862, Northern Army suffered demoralizing reverses in July and August. The argument that emancipation was a military necessity means it needs to happen, necessary, was a military necessity became increasingly persuasive. It would weaken the Confederacy and correspondingly strengthen the Union by siphoning off part of the Southern labor force and adding this manpower to the Northern side. So here's what's going on. The South, the Confederates, in the first year and a half of the Civil War are very, very successful. They're winning this war. A couple reasons for that. This is where your little T chart, the strengths and weaknesses, this is where it comes in handy. So why are the Confederates winning? Well, they have highly trained officers because 7 of the 8 military academies in the United States at this time are located in the South. And where are those people going to fight? Which side are they going to fight for? They're going to fight for the South. The soldiers that are being trained, they are not necessarily like, incredibly highly trained soldiers, but they are like pretty handy with a gun. And this just kind of like Southern culture. Most of them have grown up hunting. And even outside of that, it's like, all right, well, a lot of them have grown up farming. And so they know how to live off the land. And so that definitely helps. Not only have they learned how to live off the land, they know the land because the majority of these battles happen in the South. It's when the Confederates go north that things go sour. So the Union needed help. The Union needed a lot of help. And so until it became a military necessity, ending slavery wasn't at the top of the list. But we'll see in this next one, it is a motivating factor. Now let's go down to the next one. So Lincoln issues the Emancipation Proclamation. 1 month later, after the qualified Union victory in the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln issued a preliminary proclamation warning that in all states still in rebellion on January 1st, 1863, he would declare their slaves then, thenceforward, and forever free. January 1st came with it the proclamation which committed the government and armed forces of the United States to liberate the slaves still in rebel states as an act of justice warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity. So what does this do? It frees slaves in the South. But guess who does not view Abraham Lincoln as their president, nor is going to follow the orders of Abraham Lincoln? The states in the South. The Emancipation Proclamation does not end slavery. It influences the end of slavery for sure, but it really doesn't do much. Like practically, like actually, doesn't really do much. It does have more motivational, like underlying like motivational. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Like I gotta. Oh, come on, there we go. I really don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's not something that can be like accurately measured, like physically. It's metaphor. No, that's not the word. All right, anyways. So this doesn't free any slaves really. And again, if you want to see like how this wasn't just about ending slavery, check out this next sentence. The proclamation exempted. So if you were to have, let's say you got 10 zeros in this class. Some of you I'm talking to. Say you got 10 zeros in this class, but you do really, really good on an assignment. Maybe you do really, really good on a test. And I say, you know what? I'm going to help them out here. I'm going to exempt them from some of those zeros. That means I'm forgiving you. That means I'm not even forgiving you. I'm not making it count against you. Excuse me. The proclamation exempted the border slave states and all or parts of the three Confederate states controlled by the Union Army on the grounds that these areas were not in rebellion against the United States, even after the Emancipation Proclamation is issued. It doesn't apply to the states that didn't rebel against the United States, the Union. The border states that have slavery, that are still in the Union, they can continue to have slaves. It's not a problem. It's okay. Doesn't matter. The only states that are legally bound to give up their slaves are the Confederate states, the 11 Confederate states. But again, they have their own government. They have their own president, military. They're not listening to Abraham Lincoln. It's a lot more complicated than we may think. Let's read this last part. As a result, no slaves were actually freed by the Emancipation Proclamation because it only affected the states that did not even recognize Abraham Lincoln as their president. Here's what it did do. The proclamation did authorize the recruitment of free slaves and free blacks as Union soldiers. Blacks weren't able to fight on the Union side until the Emancipation Proclamation. During the next 2.5 years, 180,000 of them fought in the Union Army and 10,000 in the Navy, making a vital contribution to Union victory as well as their own freedom. Emancipation would vastly increase the stakes of the war. It became a war for a new birth of freedom, as Lincoln stated in the Gettysburg Address, a war that would transform Southern society by destroying its basic institution. Again, it's not as easy as saying the North was 100% innocent and the South was 100% guilty. If you think that, then, well, it's just not the case. That's the problem with history. We can't simplify it. When we simplify it, we lose meaning. We lose what actually happened. So we gotta dive deep into it. We used to have a class here just on the Civil War. Just on the Civil War. One entire semester just on the Civil War. You could spend 20 years only researching the Civil War and still not have all of it. Let's leave this last part. 13th Amendment. I gotta move myself. I'm moving myself. Oh, that was stupid. Not me singing anyways. 13th Amendment. Meanwhile, Lincoln and the Republican Party recognized that the Emancipation Proclamation as a war measure might have no constitutional validity once the war was over. The legal framework of slavery would still exist in the former Confederate states as well as the Union. As well as in the Union slave states that had been exempted from the proclamation. So the party committed itself to a constitutional amendment to abolish slavery. The overwhelmingly Republican Senate passed the 13th Amendment by more than the necessary two-thirds majority on April 8th, 1864, but not until January 31st, 1865, that enough Democrats in the House abstain or vote for the amendment to pass by a bare two-thirds. By December 18th, 1865, the requisite three-quarters of states had ratified the 13th Amendment, which ensured that forever after, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist in the United States. All right. 13th Amendment is what ends slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation kind of sets the framework. It sets the tone for it, but it does not do in action. It doesn't actually free slaves. Again, it's a complicated issue, but we need to understand it. We need to look at it. I didn't make you read the entire Emancipation Proclamation because there's some parts I really want you to see. But that's all I got for you. I'll see you tomorrow.